KAYLEE Goncalves, this family. Thank you so much for joining us here. And the latest developments, what are you kind of talking with the family about, and kind of just what are we looking at right now, a month after this tragedy?
Well, on Monday, we had a meeting with the investigators, the prosecutor, Chief Fry, everyone that's kind of involved in the investigation, and the family and myself met with them and wanted to kind of connect with them about a few issues. We had a lot of questions that we wanted answered. Most of them didn't get answered because they're keeping, most of the investigation pretty close to the vest. But we did want to cover a couple of things. The first thing was accountability. There have been a lot of inconsistent statements put out by Chief Fry, Bill Thompson, Kathy Mabbitt, Art Betke, the mayor, and those inconsistencies, kind of didn't promote confidence in the investigation, because if you have one rooster that's basically speaking and telling the correct information instead of 4 or 5 people speaking and giving interviews, it can be much more of a consistent message. And so we wanted to let them know that we'd like to see, some more accountability when it comes to communication with the public, and accountability regarding, them managing their side of the investigation a little better. The second part of it was communication with the families, the victims' families, and making sure that has, they do a better job of it. They haven't done a very good job of communicating with the families. It's been kind of inconsistent. We've been reaching out to them, a lot of that stuff. And I wanted to make it very clear to them that our expectations were the investigations, number one, obviously. Number two is the victims' families. And the third is the media, and the general public. The idea that the families might hear about some new information on a news release was unacceptable. We needed to hear about it first, prepare for anything that might come down the road regarding that, and move forward in that direction. So
it is, and there's a lot of information we don't know. And like you said, police are keeping a lot of this information close as the investigation continues. How much does the families know, and how much does the Goncalves family know about what happened on that night?
Well, there's been a lot of information that's been put out by the different parties. Bill Thompson made some statements about the targeting aspect of it that, Chief Fry walked back on. Kathy Mabbitt, the coroner on the case, has made a lot of statements, a lot of interviews, has spoken with different victims' families. Art Betke, obviously, from the get-go, the mayor of Moscow, made the statement about crime of passion. So, we went in wanting to clarify a lot of that information. We wanted to, I had 5 pages of questions that, we were looking for. They wouldn't give us much information, if any, on most of the stuff. But we're hopeful that, the thing that we wanted to do is that leaving that meeting, the police asked us to, for the platform that we're using, giving some interviews, is to really focus on information regarding the 2011, 2013 Hyundai white vehicle, and, the tip line being 208-883-7180, and getting information on that and putting that out to the public. I think that's an important piece of evidence regarding who might have been in the car, what they might have seen, things like that. And the fact that the tip line itself has been turned over to the FBI. So you'll have to be patient in your tips. There might be a prompting that you may have to go through. It may be a 15-minute or so phone call in order to get the tip in. But for us to, put that forward and make sure that people were aware of that, and that's a piece of evidence that they're really looking for. So,
and over the last just week or so, the tip line has been open, and you mentioned the car as well, that white stock photo that they sent out, and they post on their Facebook page about all the information and sort of tips. But we really haven't heard a ton from police as the media, and obviously we're a low priority here on the scheme of things. But Is there more communication? Is there a daily communication between the police and the families?
Well, that's part of it. I mean, there's a lot of questions that we asked during the meeting on why they are keeping certain information from the public, why they're not using the community more, and trying to find a suspect or a person of interest in the case. These are all investigative decisions that they're making, and we're going to hold them accountable for all of those decisions that they make. And we are, the one thing that people are very, we support the police, we support the investigation, we support everything about the people that are helping the investigation, but you also have to hold people accountable for the decisions that they make and hold people accountable in every job. I'm held accountable for the things that I do. Everyone is. So you can be pro-police, pro-investigation, all of those things, and support everyone that's involved, but still hold them to a level of accountability. And so, as part of the communication with the family, that's part of the thing that we wanted to clarify. We wanted to make sure there's daily check-ins with the family, daily updates. If the family has a concern, let's say they see somebody posted some video online, and they're concerned about that. And we direct that directly to the police department, and they need to respond immediately. And the reason they need to is because maybe them getting back to us and saying, hey, that's just a bunch of fluff and there's nothing that's there with that piece of evidence. It allows the family to sleep better at night. It allows them to, to move on with things and check that box and do those things. So we wanted to make sure that they were aware of that as well. And one thing I've been saying all along, kind of hand in hand with that, is that there are a lot of people out there that are trying to get their 15 minutes of fame and coming up with ideas and theories and things like that. Especially, ones that are directed towards the families, any of the families. Number one, there needs to be a lot of grace and kindness that's put towards the families. This is a tragedy for them. It's a news story for a lot of people, but it's a life tragedy for this family and for all the victims' families. And so, a father or a daughter or someone making a statement and then them running with that statement and doing different things and twisting it in a way. These are people that have lost a sister, a brother, a daughter, and people need to, be aware of that and just be kind. And the reality of it is that the media shouldn't give those people platforms to speak. They're vile. And so the media needs to hold themselves accountable for that as well. If you are putting things out there and allowing someone to have a platform that's a supposed expert on the case, then you need to really think about what you're doing. So, and what good it's doing. And it's not good it's doing for the broadcast, what good it's doing for the investigation, for the families that are directly affected and will be affected for the rest of their lives.
It definitely is a very traumatic moment for the four families, but also the entire community in Idaho, Moscow. Certainly a small, close-knit community, the University of Idaho, the student body as a whole. But amongst the victim families, obviously you represent KAYLEE Goncalves and that family. Is there any communication amongst the families? Because we've seen different members of families speak out recently, and obviously as this investigation continues on, they're searching for answers. They want a little bit of peace of mind. How much communication is there amongst the families of these four tragic victims?
Well, I mean, in our situation, Maddie's family was very close with KAYLEE's family, so they're in constant communication with each other. I do think that that's been a little bit of a how would I want to put it, some damage control that has to, when you have an investigation and you put out the word targeting and you have sons and daughters that were there, and you don't know who the target supposedly is, or if it's a targeted house, or if it's even targeted at all, based on the information that's been released, that the families start kind of pointing fingers at each other, like, oh, well, maybe they were targeting them, and why were they targeting them in some way? So I don't think it really helped bring the families together at all. It kind of pushed them apart because they didn't know anything about the investigation. And so, you would think in a situation like this that all the families would be together, KAYLEE and Maddie's families are very close, but we haven't had much contact with some of the other families, but I've only been on it for about a week or so. So the history of the contact with the families, I'm not really sure on as far as how long or what type of communications they've had. So
Correct. Yeah, I wanted to ask that question. And I think the most recent development we've seen, obviously, the police putting out the car, but we also saw some of the possessions of these victims being removed from the house. How important was that to the Goncalves family to maybe get some possessions out of a potential crime scene and get it back to them?
well, I mean, it's, you can look at it two ways. I think it was a big deal by the police, but I'm not sure it was such a big deal to the victims or the families. These are belongings that were involved in a murder or surrounded a murder. And, sometimes you have different emotions with that. Sometimes you want to cling on to those belongings, and sometimes you just want to push them away and never see them again, depending on if they bring up memories of those things. So, is it good that they return the items? Yes, it's great. But I'm not sure it's something that I would hang my hat on as far as that's they've done great. So.
All right. And my final question to you is, as we continue on, it's been a month since that tragic November 13th early morning hours. What do you do from here? What does the Goncalves family do? Do they continue to support police and hope for answers, or are there other things that can happen? What does it look like moving forward from here?
Well, they've always supported the police. They support the investigation. They're hopeful and optimistic, as they should be, in these cases, and they're hoping that the decisions that are made by the investigators are going to eventually find the person who committed these crimes. And so, moving forward, they're just supportive of the police and supportive of the things that they're doing, and they're hopeful that there'll be some answers. I don't know what the time frame is on that, but hopefully there'll be some answers in the future, and still just being involved in the investigation as much as we can. So,
and I think a lot of people are looking for the answers. What is maybe the message that the Goncalves family is speaking to police?
well, like, I mentioned earlier, our first is accountability. We want to make sure that the police are doing the things that they need to do, and they're making the right judgment calls about certain things. We had a lengthy meeting with them on Monday, and didn't get a lot of the answers that we wanted, because they're keeping it close to them, all the details in the investigation. We pointed out a lot of inconsistencies that we thought have been put out to the public, and different things. We mentioned some other things to them. And then, the communication with the families. We wanted them to really make sure that was a priority for the police department, not just our family, but all of the victims' families. And so, and then, the police are the police car, the car that they're looking for, the white Hyundai, making sure that people are very aware of that. And then my last was just the media holding people accountable for people that probably shouldn't be speaking about things, and offer some kindness and some grace towards all of the families. So.
Yes, all of the families. Thank you so much, especially as we're heading into the holiday season. Certainly a hard time for a lot of the people. Shannon Gray there, the attorney for KAYLEE Goncalves, his family. Thank you so much for joining us here on Live Now from Fox. We appreciate the insight and hope we have answers soon.